cut out the bodice and the back like shown in the pictures, and I've cut the same thing out of the lace. I need to attach the lace to the front piece and the back piece. So all I'm doing is just a quick whip stitch around the whole outside. So I'm going to set my settings to probably about 4, and I'm just going to go real close to the edge around the whole outside. I don't need to back stitch or anything. And I'm just going to real lightly go around the outside edge. We're making this so it's all one piece to work with. So after this, you don't have to worry about them separating or anything like that. This will be your front and your back. I have the front piece and the back piece here right now. I'm going to put them together so they can act as one piece. You can pin this or not, whatever works best for you. So I'm putting the shoulder seams together, and then this one too. Back piece and the front piece, what's going to be the lining part of the fabric, but you still have to put good sides together. Line them up. Stitch them at the same spot you did the other ones. I usually end up pulling on this string back here a little bit to help pull it through so it's not getting stuck in the first stitch there. And here's the other side. Stick them together. And stitch. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take the good sides and put them together, open them up. So here's this one. This will be the inside part. Here's my Lacey part. Just line them up to figure out which is the front and which is the back. And then go ahead and take a pin. See how I have that there? I'm going to open up the seams like such. And I'm going to pin open the seams on both sides like that. It doesn't always catch totally open, but that's okay. I just attempt. Sometimes it just goes its own direction and you really don't notice anyway. It's just my futile attempt. But yeah, so good sides together, and then I go to the opposite side. I'm going to do the same thing, line up the seams, open up the seam like this, do the same thing on the opposite side. Pin it, and again pin it, and then you kind of lay it out and try to make sure that there's no bubbles on either side, like no extra fabric, and then just pin it on down right away right there, and right here, and then the same thing on this side. I'm just kind of making sure that it is the same on the front and the back before I start pinning. So I always do the middle one, and then I do the sides. And this side, they're all lined up. And I'm going to go ahead and stick it in here, probably 3.5. And I'm actually, because I kind of cheat with this, I kind of stretch as I'm going. So I'm going to pull on it as I'm stitching, just a little bit, so that when they go to pull it over their head, there's a little bit of give. And this is just what works for me. It doesn't work for everyone. Some people that sew with knits would probably gasp that I'm pulling on it, but I don't know, it works for me. To go ahead and clip. You can clip over the part that you just put in as like a stay stitch to keep the seams together. I'm sorry, not the seams, the lace onto the fabric. That doesn't matter if you clip that now, because the seam that you just made is the one that's actually going to hold it. So you can snip up to about that seam that you just did. You just don't want to snip through that, or you're going to have to sew around again at that area. And it's not fun because you have to sew it a little bit further out, which means now you're changing it. So just be really careful when you're snipping that you do not cut into your seam, your actual seam there. But this is going to allow it to open up a little bit more and lay nicer when you flip it. So right now this is the inside out version, but it's what we just sewed, exactly the same as, held the same as we just sewed it. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to take it and kind of open it up and see how you can now see that beautiful seam there. I mean, you're not going to see it later. What we're going to do is, this is a trick somebody taught me and I love it and use it all the time. I'm going to sew in a way that, okay, this is the actual back, because you know the other side has lace on it. I'm going to sew the whole way around the outside. My preference is to do it this way. I'm going to lay it like this. So here's my lacy one. Here is the not lacy that will be the back. I'm going to sew starting right up here and sew this against this one. I'm also going to kind of keep it nice and not pulling tight, but just that I know that this is like this and it's not coming like this is going under or something like this. That would be terrible if you had extra down in there. You do not want that, or you will have a mess. You want to keep that it's open the whole time and you know for sure that it's open. So that way when you turn it, it will match up. Okay, so all I'm doing is making sure there's nothing under there. I'm going to start here. I go pretty close to the original seam, and I'm going to be pulling this apart often, not tight, but just enough that I know that I'm not sewing extra pieces. And then I'm going to pull a little too, because I don't want it to pop when it goes over their head. Just give them a little bit of room to work with. So just keep kind of pulling ahead. These fingers here pull, this pulls, and then you pull ahead. So just kind of pulling ahead a little bit. This will help that it doesn't come up later, and I'll show you that. Pulling. Almost back to the beginning. There we go. Alright, do my little snippy here. Alright, now the moment of truth. And there you have it. So see, now when your kid is wearing it, this stays to the back. It's not going to creep around the front and you start seeing just white and not lace. It's going to lay really, really nicely. So now what I do to try to keep it all together and at a good spot is I go around and I pin it. Okay, so I pinned it the whole way around the outside so that both layers are now pinned together. And what I'm going to do is just sew a quick stitch in size 4 around the whole outside, just to hold everything in place for when I put the sleeve on it later. Okay, so what you're going to do then after that's all stitched together is you're going to take the two sides, good sides together, side seams, and again you can pin them or not pin them, whatever you decide. And just sew it shut. And then the other side too. Same thing, put the good sides together. And then you'll be able to flip it. And the side, I always figure out where the side seams are and shake it then there, and that way you can see which one's the front, which one's the back. So The next step is going to be either, you can do either putting on the sleeves next, or you can do the skirt. First, the sleeve is, I already put the lace with the the lining piece, and sewed the whole way around the outside edge. So now, if you're doing just lace, you don't hem the edge. If you're doing it so that it's see-through, you don't hem the edge, because you're going to be hand stitching lace onto the edge later, and you don't have to worry about it. With this, I would go ahead and hem the edge and then put the lace on it, because it's going to be a nicer finish than just putting the lace on the edge. And also because I don't want it to be as long as it was on the little girl. And this will take a little bit of it off. Okay, so I did that. Now what I'm going to do is take good sides together and sew right here. Oops. There we go. And then what you're going to do is, this was my front. Oh, I've got a hair in there. That's not fun. Ah, good, got it. Okay. So then I'm going to do is take this, and we're going to flip this inside out. So now the good side's on the inside. Find out where the front is, which is this right here. I put a pin on the side of the sleeve that the front is, and so I want that part to go to the front, so it'll have to go on this side. So then what you're going to do is, you want the good side out, so it's as if it's going to look on them later. And you take it, and I'm doing, this is the front here, sticking it up and under. So good sides are touching. And I am just going to pin the seams first. A lot of times I'll use my serger for the edges on a lot of things, but in this particular one, I think I'm just more concerned about it actually laying flat. So I'm just not doing that. And honestly, they're not going to wear it enough to ever fray it out. Even so, it's knit, so it really doesn't fray. So you just use your own judgment on that. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take and match it up. So like this. And we're going to put a couple pins in there. I'm just holding it flat. There's the second pin. Go to the other side. I just kind of stretch it so that they line up with each other, because you don't want any bubbles in under there. Right here. Right here. And then I sew it so that it's the sleeve side, so I'm holding it open. And kind of pulling on it a little as I go around. Poking my finger. I like to keep my needle down, but a lot of times I forget until I'm already sewing. whole way around. We've got a very noisy kid in the next room. That's not as noisy as she can get though, so I'm being thankful for what I've been given. Alright, and then you can see when I flip it, voila, a sleeve. For the over of the skirt, put the good sides together, and I'm just going to pin the edges because that's going to be a lot more crucial to get it just right, like down here. People that sew with knit quite often probably cringe when they see that I cut stuff the way I do, but I don't know, it's worked for me. I had someone tell me recently that you never ever cut knits on the fold. Well, I've always cut everything on the fold, and I don't know, it works for me. I think maybe part of the trick may be that I'm cutting things out on the carpet, and the carpet kind of holds things still, and I'm very particular to make sure that it's folded over exactly correct. I've never had a problem with the fit of a pattern or anything, so I'm not really sure, but you know, everything works differently for different people, so there's no really right or wrong way on this, just different tips and tricks that you pick up along the way, and then what ends up working best for you. Lift this up and push this in about where it starts. That's my trick, so that it actually goes in at the right spot. And then I'm just going to zip down the edges of the skirt. Now I'm going to do the other side. I'm going to go ahead and press this down. The thing I found working with this is you just got to go nice and steady and slow, and do not pull, because sections of this lace fabric that are more like the sheer part are very, very temperamental. So if you pull, it stretches it inward really fast. The other parts don't stretch inward. They're a little stretchy, but they're not much. It's just, you've got to just take it nice and slow. Like this part here is a pain because there's just the stretchy part. And you gotta just be really careful or you can sew off the side. So you just go real slow, kind of don't pull hard from behind, but just a steady pull. Sometimes you have to pull the needles out too because it doesn't like them very much either. Hitting another spot here. Slow and steady wins the race on this one. And then you just pull out the rest of your needles, and I got a little part to snip here, and then flip it around just like I did the other one. Now then, so you can see the little skirt there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the other one. It's already flipped, so the good side is out now, and with the overlock I do need to get rid of the top parts here just because otherwise they get in the way. Then what you do is you take this, I put my hand in through this guy and grab this one. And then what I do is I line up the seams right here. and I pin the seams together. So this is exactly how it's going to end up looking later. Like this is the outside of the skirt. I'm just going to pin the other side. Seams together. And then if you kind of put your finger in there and kind of shake, and bring up the other piece from under. Sometimes one will be slightly stretchier than another. It is what it is, and that's fine. And then you take a pin. This is when I wish I had 3 hands, but I kind of hold it back here with my other, like these fingers kind of grab in under here. Give it a little tug to make sure that you get it all even. And then here, I'm going to pull up the bottom using that and put a pin in it. Same thing right here. Right here. And if you find you have a little more stretch than you want under there, you can always take out the last pin then and kind of do another little tug to just kind of share the stretchiness from one part to the other a little bit better. It's a little more stretchy than I want right there. It happens. The nice thing with knit is it's so forgiving. That's why I like it so much, and then we kind of went this direction with the flower girl dresses because knit is very forgiving. I've worked with a lot of satins in my years and a lot of flower girl dresses with satin, and this is so much easier because if something doesn't match up perfectly, no biggie, just a little stretch, just a tiny bit, and it's fixed. So that has really been a big difference with all these dresses this time. Now I'm going to go ahead and take it into the sewing machine. And I'm going to keep it, I end up doing this a lot, that first little crevice on my sewing, why can't I think, the foot, is usually what I use as my kind of guideline. And we're going to set this to about 3.5. It doesn't like my needle. My pen, not my needle. And just going to give it a little edge so that they're going to be together as one, so it makes it easier. See, if I pull too much at those tricky areas, it wants to come down and be further than my needle when I'm sewing at. So you just got to be careful of that, not stretching. And we're almost there. And then we flip it inside out. My bodice is here. Good side of bodice. The good side of this is on the inside, and we drop it in. Okay, so it's good side to good side. And we're going to go ahead like this and pin the seams together again. It's all about getting those seams together. And this seam. And I'm glad it's forgiving because I actually should have sewn it in a little further on the skirt. If this was satin, I would be sunk. Because I was compensating on the top to make it a little bit smaller since the girls are actually 6 months, not 12 to 18. So on the next dress, I will have to remember to make the size a little bit smaller, just a little bit. Let the overlock cut off some edges a little bit. Very thankful this is knit. So I'm just pinning it the whole way around the outside. So that everything's perfect together. It's not going to slip. And then before you start to sew it, reach up and under and just make sure that your lace is pulled down the whole way. The last thing you want to do is have it bunched up in there in under your seam, and then you'll have to rip it out if you're able to. Lace is not very forgiving for ripping it out. Neither is chiffon, I found out. If you're doing the dress with the chiffon on the outside, it works exactly the same way as what I'm doing here. Now I'm going to go ahead and stick it in the sewing machine, and I'll probably let it at 3.5. I'm going to do that little stretch thing I was talking about. I'm pulling it just a little bit. Doesn't like my pen. So I'm doing a little bit of a pull as I go. Gotta be careful not to pull that up on the inside. I probably should have put another pin, but you know me, I'm not a big fan of pins. More than I have to. Kind of make sure once in a while everything's pulled out, run your hand in under, make sure you're not sewing the other piece into it. Pull the pins out. I normally would overlock this edge, but because of the way that it lays when I overlock it, I've decided not to, and it doesn't fray anyway. This is a Flower Girl dress that's gonna probably only be worn the day of and maybe just for fun afterwards, so I'm seriously not too worried about it fraying out, but you definitely could overlock it. I did on the other dresses that I made with this pattern, doing the same thing, making the... Okay, and there it is. So now all I have to do is add sleeves and then try it on her and throw a hem in under so that the lace comes down a little further than the hem.